When I say the words peer pressure, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Yeah, probably not something good, right? But what if we could take that same powerful social force and actually re-engineer it? Today, we're diving into a blueprint for building better schools, not by trying to fight peer pressure, but by grabbing it by the horns and harnessing its power for good.
And this right here is the classic view. It's what we've all been warned about. This quote just nails that traditional negative framing. We see peer pressure as this wild, dangerous force that we have to shield our kids from, instead of what it really is, a powerful tool just waiting to be used. So this is the big question, isn't it? What if, instead of just playing defense against peer pressure, we could go on offense? What if we could actually design a school environment where the most powerful influence in a teenager's life is actively pushing them towards being excellent and towards being kind? All right, so let's get into it. First up, we're going to flip that script entirely. In this section, we're going to redefine the whole concept and introduce this idea of an engineered ethos, basically a school culture that is built on purpose, not just by accident. The core idea we're talking about here is called pro-social influence, or PPI for short. And look, this isn't just some feel-good wishful thinking. It's about systematically taking that deep human need to belong and redirecting it. So instead of belonging being tied to doing risky stuff, PPI makes it so that you belong by cooperating, by working hard, and by helping each other out. And when you put them side by side, the difference is it's night and day. On the left, you've got that chaotic, fear-based model we all know. But on the right, with pro-social influence, you have a system that's been deliberately designed. The entire goal shifts from just don't do bad things to making high achievement the new normal, and making a positive contribution the real key to social status. Okay, so that sounds great, but how does it actually work? Well, it's not magic, it's psychology. So let's dig into the science of what's called social contagion. This is the why that makes this whole blueprint even possible. So it all comes down to understanding two different types of social rules, or norms. Descriptive norms are simple. It's just what you see people doing. Most students get their homework done. Okay. But the real power, the secret sauce, is in the injunctive norms. That's what the group signals it actually values. So when the student group itself starts to admire and approve of the hard work it takes to get that homework done, well, that's when the whole culture starts to shift. And you know, the end game here isn't just about changing behavior. It's about building character. Research has actually shown that positive traits, like persistence, are literally contagious. When a student sees their friends grinding through a tough assignment instead of giving up, they are way more likely to do the same. And that effect? It leads to higher grades that actually stick around. So, if that's the why, we need the how. Students can't just create this kind of positive culture out of thin air. They need the right tools. And this is where something called social emotional learning, or SEL, comes into the picture. Now, before we break down what those skills are, just look at this number, 11. A well-run SEL program can boost a student's achievement by 11 percentile points. I mean, think about that. This is not a small, tiny gain. We're talking about a major academic leap that comes directly from teaching kids how to understand their emotions and navigate their relationships. And here's the nuts and bolts of how it works. SEL is so much more than just being nice. Check out these core skills. Social awareness, that builds empathy. Relationship skills, that lets students solve their own conflicts without an adult always having to step in. But the real linchpin, the one that makes the whole thing go, is responsible decision-making. It specifically teaches students to ask, okay, how is the choice I'm about to make going to affect everyone else? That is the engine of a positive peer culture. Okay, so the students have their toolkit, but who's the architect here? Well, that brings us right to the teacher. They're on the front lines, and they need a playbook for how to build this culture, one classroom at a time. The foundational philosophy is something called the warm/strict paradigm. And what it does is it completely rejects that false choice between being a tough, demanding teacher or a kind, caring one. The core belief here is that holding a student to a really high standard is a profound act of caring. You're showing them, I believe you can do this. I believe you can be great. And it's not just a vibe, it's a concrete set of actions. The teacher explains the why behind every single rule, always connecting it back to the group's success. When they have to correct a student, they focus on the action, never the person. And they do it while using warm, nonverbal cues to stay connected. And this one is huge. Consequences are temporary. This gives every kid a clean slate, and it models forgiveness, showing that mistakes aren't the end of the world.
Now, having one amazing classroom is great, but a whole amazing school is the real goal. For this thing to truly take root, that positive culture has to be reinforced everywhere, in every hallway, every classroom, every single day. A really common way to do this is with a framework called PBIS. And as you can see from this chart, the huge majority of the effort, that big 85% chunk, is focused on Tier 1. This is all about creating universal expectations for everybody. By making positive behavior the overwhelming norm for the vast majority, you create this powerful, positive tide that naturally makes negative behavior the rare exception. So it all sounds like a pretty perfect system, right? And honestly, it can be. But there is a critical vulnerability, a crack in the foundation that can bring the whole thing tumbling down if you don't address it. And that vulnerability is inequity. A system like this, one built on positive influence, runs entirely on trust. If students even perceive that the rules and the consequences are being applied unfairly, like you see here, where some groups are disciplined way more often than others, that trust just evaporates. Poof! And the system loses all its legitimacy. This brings us to what has to be a non-negotiable principle. Equity isn't just a side project or a nice to have. In a system that is literally built on shared trust and common values, fairness is the absolute bedrock. Without it, this whole blueprint for a positive peer culture is just fundamentally unstable from day one. All right, so let's put all the pieces together. What we've been talking about isn't just one simple program or a magic trick. It's a complete blueprint, and it's made up of 3 interconnected systems working together. So here's your final takeaway. First, you use the science of social norms to make good things like hard work contagious. Second, you teach the skills through SEL so that students are actually equipped to participate in this new culture. And third, you build the system with school-wide cultural architecture so that excellence and kindness become the easy default choice for everyone. And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. We've just walked through how a school's entire culture doesn't have to be an accident. It can be designed with purpose. So it makes you wonder, what other critical parts of our kids' development are we just leaving up to chance when we could be intentionally designing for their success?